Our next speaker is running for the 2nd District of Connecticut, U.S. Congress. Please help me welcome Daria Novak.
Well, I don't know if it's good or bad for you, but I haven't written a speech to give. I figured I would just talk from my heart, and I have to say that you can't imagine how appreciative I am of what CCL does for Connecticut. I have 2 high school students, and I'm not a career politician. I haven't served in office before, but I look at my kids who are 14 and 15, and I think about what is America going to be like when they're adults. And they're so close to being adults now, 14 and 15. They're going to be voting in just a few years. And are they going to have the freedom that we have today to speak out, to gather at events like this? Do you think that we're threatened in America today? We are threatened. Our very way of life is threatened from what I can see. So a couple of years ago, in 2009, I started the Constitution Brigade in Connecticut. At first, we were just a few people, and then we grew and grew. We attended rallies, and I handed out copies of the Constitution. For some reason, some people felt that was threatening. Kind of hard to believe, isn't it, that handing out a copy of the Constitution made me a radical. Well, you know what? If saying God and country in the same sentence makes me a radical, then I'm proud to wear that label. Now, we handed out copies of the Constitution. We attended Veterans Parades. We march every year in Hartford. And it grew and grew. Well, I just want to tell you a little story real quick. I buy copies of the Constitution at cost from Heritage Foundation for the Constitution Brigade. I don't buy anything above cost if I can help it. I'm real frugal. New England roots, right? So when they cost $1, I buy them for 15 cents, and I hand them out for free. Well, I buy them by the box load. You know, the delivery guy comes to my house, and he knows he better be taking vitamins if he's on my route, because I constantly buy big boxes. Well, Heritage Foundation called me up one day and said, you know, we sell these to you at cost. You can't resell them at a profit. I said, what are you talking about? I give them away. He said, but you buy them by the thousands. We're delivering boxes all the time to your house. I said, yeah, well, guess what? I live in the Constitution state, don't we? Yep. And we still are the Constitution state, and we get it. We understand the Constitution here, especially in Eastern Connecticut in the 2nd District. We're reading that document. And he said, but you buy so many of these constitutions that you are one of the largest purchasers in the entire United States. Well, guess what? Thank you. You helped do it, because we in the Constitution state are returning to the Constitution. Isn't that a good idea? That sacred document is what's going to keep us free. Now, when you have candidates that don't know what the Second Amendment is about, do you think you should be supporting them? No way. We need to have good candidates who understand the Constitution and want to return to that document as the guiding document that will keep us free for future generations. And you know what? I put the preamble of the Constitution up on my refrigerator. My kids read it. My kids have a copy of that document. And you know what? I give it to them to hand out to their friends too. And then they have their parents calling the house and saying, can we get more copies of it? This is something that people understand once they read it, that this is a document that will protect us from a tyrannical government if we exercise our rights. Now, for me, handing out copies of the Constitution wasn't enough. I look at America as a huge puzzle. And we have a lot of different pieces of different shapes and pictures, and when we put it all together, we can see that that picture is the United States of America. It is we the people. And every one of us has a role that we can play. Those roles won't be identical. Just as those of you out in the audience today will know that some of you are members of groups, some of you are marching, some of you are talking at work about what we can do to keep this nation free. Some of us have decided that we can run for public office to do it. As a former government employee, as a former university professor, and a small business owner, I thought I have some skills that I can contribute. And the way I look at it is, I want to serve the people of Eastern Connecticut, serve the people of the United States. It's not about ego. It's not about thinking we're better than. We're one of the people. That's what I think we need to remember, each one of us, when we go out and look for candidates that we're going to vote for this fall. What is their attitude? If they have the right attitude that they're going to follow the Constitution, that they're going to listen to the people and serve the people, then when they go to Hartford or they go to Washington, they're going to do a good job for us. We're never going to find someone we agree with 100% of the issues. If we do, then somebody's not telling the truth. But we know that if we find people that will follow that document, that we're going to be safe in the future. I've taught my children and my neighbors send their kids to our home to learn about things like that. We all can become teachers. We can spread that word. I know over on the CCDL table I saw copies of the Constitution, and I knew I brought a few hundred along myself. When I hold that document and I look at it, it reminds me about how lucky I am to be an American citizen. When I was with the State Department in Washington, I traveled overseas and lived in China for a while. I just want to tell you something that happened. I was actually on a private trip over there for a business contract during 9/11. And when I went into the company cafeteria the day before 9/11, the Chinese with whom I was working, and I speak the language, they were very friendly, we sat at the table and talked together. The day of 9/11, the day after 9/11, when I went to that cafeteria, the same people that I had sat with the day before wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't sit with me. This is a cafeteria that's very crowded. As you can imagine, in a Chinese cafeteria, there are a lot of people crowded in a factory cafeteria. But nobody would look me in the eye. And finally, toward the end of my luncheon, I'm thinking, my gosh, what's wrong with me? A day later, and nobody will even look at me. One of the senior people came over and said, until we hear from our government how we are supposed to think about 9/11 and what our official government position is, we cannot risk speaking to you. We could lose our jobs. We could lose our lives. Our families would be in danger. I don't know about you, but I don't want that type of tyrannical thinking to prevail in America. Do you agree with me? We have to stand strong now. We are in the 11th hour, and I'll tell you, as a candidate, it is a balancing act between talking about the problems we have and the challenges we face and the solutions, and causing people to put their head in the sand because they are so afraid of what's happening. I think it is our duty, our privilege, and our responsibility to stand up strong, to fight for this nation, to talk about it, and to talk about the greatness that is America, about the exceptionalism that is here in this country. Every one of you has that spirit in your soul. We are America. We are American citizens. We have a right, a privilege, a duty, a responsibility to be American. And that means to express ourselves, to express our political opinions, to lead our lives in the private sector without excessive government interference. I can make you this promise. I'm going to go right back out in that audience, and I'm going to be the same whether I stand up here or I'm acting out there, standing here in private. We will fight. I will fight for you, and I will never back down, because as Americans, we have to preserve the rights that made this country great so that future generations can experience the same things that we did. Are you with me? I'm going to shut up now, but I just want you to know that I appreciate the privilege to speak to you here today, and I feel very privileged to belong to a group that protects the freedoms that I treasure for me and for my children. Thank you very much.